French says that's understandable for a guy to pull away if a woman becomes possessive of him. So one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about is the idea of like why guys pull away, because there's a lot of really bad assumptions out there. There's a woman the other day on my YouTube channel that left a message in the comments where she's like, if a guy pulls away, that means that he's seeing somebody else, and why would you give them any information other than, to get rid of this cheater? And I'm like, that's not true. It's actually a well-studied fact that most guys don't have somebody on the side. A lot of guys, there over 25% of men out there right now are completely celibate, meaning they haven't hooked up, gotten physically intimate with anybody in at least the last 12 months. With women, it's a much smaller percentage, and most guys aren't players, right? They aren't running around dating lots of women. And if the guys that you're dating are players, then that has something to do with those guys, right? And there's a small percentage of guys out there, very, very small percentage of guys who are actually players, who are actually playing around the field, right? And most of them are all on the dating apps. So you'll run into them if you go onto there. But there's a lot of reasons why guys might pull away. And the question is whether, because there's a woman on a live stream a while back where she was like, oh, this guy that I've been talking to, he pulls away every single day. And I was like, how does that make any sense, right? Like, what do you mean by that? And what she clarified, and she's like, well, he pulls away in the evening and then he doesn't start talking to me until the next day. And I'm like, you think maybe he's like going to sleep at night? Right? Like, I mean, people have lives, right? They have different things. And so you need to question whether, if a guy's pulling away from you, whether this is normal behavior or not, right? It's one of those things where if, we live in this weird time where things haven't, just to let you know, maybe you don't know this, or maybe you do, I don't know. But things haven't always been like this, right? We haven't always been able to contact anybody we want to, anywhere in the world, anytime we want to. We haven't had instant communication with everybody. That's a fairly new thing in human society. I know it can feel like it's been like that forever since we've had it for a while. But it used to be that people would like meet, like, they'd meet up like once or twice a week at most, that you had to call somebody. And if they didn't show up, it was like, did they die? What happened to them? You couldn't message them and find out what was going on. And so you want to make sure that what you're doing isn't extreme, right? Because it's really easy to get into extreme behaviors and not realize that you're in an extreme behavior. The magic is always in the middle. And if you're on one side where you're like, oh, I need him, like there was a woman in our community the other day that was like, a man should communicate, right? If I text him, he should communicate back to me in 30 minutes or less, right? And it's like, really? Like, what if he has a job? What if he goes to work and he's focused on work? Do you think he should be, he's in doing whatever he's doing? You think he should be stopping work and contacting you? We need to have better boundaries as people in life, right? And we need to start looking at ourselves and looking at our own behaviors and saying, okay, is my behavior this thing that I have where I'm like feeling like I need to be connected with this person all the time? Is that healthy? Right? And start looking at it instead of the problems with that person out there, but instead looking at, what's actually going on, right? Because if you date one guy after the next guy, after the next guy, after the next guy, and every single guy does the same thing, you might want to start questioning whether it's men or whether it's something that you're doing yourself, right? Because if the problem, I actually heard this from somebody the other day, it was really good. If the problem has nothing to do with you, then the solution can have nothing to do with you either. In other words, if the problem is something external out there, then there's no way that you can fix it. There's no way that you can do anything about it. You just have to blame things that are outside of yourself and hope that it changes at some point, right? Like I get women all the time that'll post things on some of my Facebook posts where they'll be like, oh, men are the problem. You need to be teaching men, and men, don't know how to treat women and all that kind of stuff, which to an extent is true, right? And at the same time, if you're constantly pointing the finger at men, there are literally thousands of men's dating coaches out there, and they're teaching men what they should and shouldn't be doing. And so many of those things might not be what you want men to be taught, because what a lot of times what you think works in terms of making women feel attracted isn't actually what works, right? Like, there was this woman that was on one of my posts, and she's like, you need to tell men to start respecting women and start treating women, really nice and doing all these things. And I'm like, I get that. And feeling respected by a guy is something that can make women feel attracted, right? However, if you tell a guy that, especially a guy that's been frustrated and lonely and he's getting dating advice, likely the situation is that he's been frustrated for a long time and he's been having a lot of challenges with dating, and telling him that he needs to respect women is going to be a total mismatch for him, and he's going to feel like he can't trust anything you're saying anymore, because what he's probably been doing for a long time is respecting women and getting nowhere with it, right? Because that's usually where a lot of guys come from, is they do the super friendship method, right? Where they hang out with a woman and they're really nice to them and they're really respectful, right? And they don't get anywhere, and the woman ends up dating some a-hole who treats her really badly, and he's like, oh, why do women not like nice guys who respect them, right? And so you can't just tell guys respect women and that's how you get women, because that's not true, right? It's masculinity, right? There's a bit of danger and a bit of dominance and a bit of going after what you want that needs to be there. He has to have a masculine shell in order to be attractive to women. Man, I ran off on a tangent here. In order for him to add respect to kind of his communication style and it be attractive, he has to be surrounded by a masculine shell. And if he's not, then most women aren't going to be attracted to him at all.